right, time for another draftphysics.com, debatephysics.com. But again, the debate is just in such a lousy form. Just really can't take place because the arguments made are ignored, and they just make counter accusations. Just change subjects, and so nothing gets. It's all quite circular. All right, so I guess first we'll deal with dispar, and then we'll play a little bit of an Ian Gosling video, just because it's hilarious. Anyway, all right, so dispar is what has been established, I guess you could argue, is that in these experiments where you collide one object into another object, and you collide into a 2-mass and then into a 3-mass, it would appear, the pattern, would appear to be that the velocities are equal. Okay, so the two things leave with the same velocities. I mean, that's what's being demonstrated, I think. So I haven't seen it yet with the 2-mass, but we'll have to wait for that. And the 4-mass would be interesting to have also to verify this fact. And the question is whether they're leaving with 1/2 the velocity or 1/4 of the velocity in this case, right? So 1/4 of the velocity means, yes, it's a total mass of 4, and it's moving 1/4 of the velocity. That conserves momentum. If they're leaving at half the velocity, then momentum isn't conserved. And as I pointed out in a previous video, it's really simple to take these pendulums, these swinging objects, and just store the energy and then release it so both objects are moving in the same direction. So it's pretty easy just to make it so the 3-mass and the 1-mass are both going in the same direction. So obviously that wouldn't be conservation of momentum. You had 100 going in and you get 200 coming out. All right. So obviously not conserving momentum. So we just established that as a fact, that when they talk about conservation of momentum, it doesn't mean anything because this elemental experiment doesn't conserve momentum. You make free momentum. All right, for hundreds of years, these arguments have been made about perpetual motion and the fact that you really can't do that. But whatever. They're going to continue to make the argument, so we're stuck with it. All right, so in Dispar's video, at least he did notice that the velocity doesn't appear to be half. It's a little short of that. And then tried to explain how it's not 1/4 anyway. All right, so, but he really doesn't do it well. So they've been, the first thing, just all the obvious stuff. They're not using like thin threads to hold these things, which, why wouldn't you just use thread? Sewing thread would be strong enough to do this. Or like this, the really fine fishing line. Instead, they're using like ropes. You're saying, why are they doing that? The second thing is the width. The more width you have, the more likely it is it's going to keep straight. So you won't have this dispar problem. So apparently, what was causing the huge distortion in Dispar's thing was that the ball was moving so much closer to the camera. It was moving so unevenly that's why it was getting 3 times the size. And besides the camera being horrible in the sense that it has this terrible wide angle stretching effect, which just makes a mess out of being able to take images and use them in some useful way. So anyway, so those are 2 simple things, all right, that he should just do it differently. Better, thinner strings, and have a wider arc between attach them at a wider distance, and then you'll get they won't sit there and go at the wrong directions. They won't tangle, and they won't do all that other crap. The other thing they have to do is you have to, I said it before, you want the 2 balls to be, when they're relaxed, they're just touching each other. You don't want any separation between them. And, if you're going to make lines, that's a line you want to make, is where they hit. And then you want to recognize that the big object's center is going to be further from that line than the small mass. So the small mass is going to be closer to that middle line than the other line. So when you draw a line for the center of the mass, okay, you recognize that the place where they're going to hit is going to be not in the middle. It's going to be proportionally more on one side than the other side, the point of contact. Then you have these lines. All right, so let me pause and I'll switch my paper. I think I can do that. Close enough, I believe. All right. So the point would be is to have those lines where the centers of the mass are, and then have the other lines that you're going to make have to be on the center line here. So you need a base line that goes right through the center of both those objects, right? And you need that to be really precise, right through the center of the masses. And because you put a penny on the bottom of this one, obviously the center of mass is a little bit lower, but I don't know if it matters enough. And then you measure your 1 unit of distance, and you have a nice parallel line for that distance, and then you measure your 4 distance, and you have a nice parallel line. Forget about your arcs. Your arcs are just a distraction because they're frankly not drawn on the center of the mass. And all you want to see is whether this, there's also a line here for half the velocity. So that's another line. So you have 1/4 the velocity line, you have a 1/2 the velocity line, and the 4 times the height line. And then film it, okay, first from the center so we can see the two things swinging, and then put the camera over here and see if you can get exactly where the center of mass goes. It's not where the edge of the ball goes. That doesn't mean anything. It's about how high this center of mass goes. The center of mass has to go above or on the line. You have to get this center of mass all the way up here, which means to get the center of mass, the ball has to be pretty high above that mark on your arc, okay, to be actually have its center of mass even with the line. So you're not getting that part. So it's not about where the edge of the ball goes. Now you could do it by on the bottom of each ball, but then the two lines are going to be different. So that's the catch there. You want to try to maybe do it so you don't have to have two separate lines for where the bottom of the ball is, and then 4 times the height, and then the bottom of the ball, and then 4 times the height. But these are the really important lines. So they've been putting these stupid arcs on here that you can't trust, okay, that don't mean much, and then they have an intersecting point. Because it gets close to it, they say there it went to certain height. So the whole point is how high does the center of mass go? That's all you want to know. How high did the center of mass rise? That tells you how much velocity or energy it had. So until you do that, okay, all this is a bunch of crap. I mean, it's not crap, but I mean, it's not good enough. Beyond the fact that, yes, you have demonstrated, at least to pretty much to my satisfaction, that in the case of the 1 mass to the 3 mass, I would have expected the 3 mass to just leave with half the momentum, that the momentum would be split, and instead the velocity is being split. But regardless, the point is if the velocity is only 1/4 of the initial speed, then it's still conserving momentum and not conserving kinetic energy. Blah, 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 blah. All right. Certainly not creating free momentum. All right. So where do I want to go from there? Yes, that's good enough. So we'll just play the Gosling video because it gets into a couple of different subjects. And, it's worth getting into the subjects, I suppose, since he's bringing. All right, so another video with a silly title, but whatever. It's just such bullshit. All right, so look, I played it in the previous video. I showed an image of a freeze frame of the two objects. One of them coming in, the 1 mass coming in, and then the 1 mass leaving. And clearly from the blurriness of the frame, it appears as though the 1 mass is leaving with something less than a third of the velocity. Now, it looks like more than a quarter, I'll concede, but it's certainly way short of a half the speed. So, hardly conclusive evidence. And so again, he says the end of draft science. It's just, this is just such baby talk. He thinks this is all you have to do, is these amateur sloppy experiments, and that proves something for all time. Oh, yeah, sure. So this doesn't understand. In the 300-year history of MV squared, they produced no definitive experimental evidence. We can't go to any experimental evidence and say, look at this great experiment. They all have flaws. The air track, obviously I showed how Professor Lewin had to fudge the experiment. And in the case of using the little rolling cars, clearly what's not talked about is the fact that why did they make the cars with metal wheels? Because that just creates a lot of mass in the rotation of the wheels, which means you don't see it as linear velocity, but they have more energy because they have a bunch of angular momentum in the wheels. Why would they use cars with big heavy wheels, or many little heavy wheels? Why would they do that? All right.
Here's me ball weights. We wanted a 3-to-1 ratio. I had a 38 gram small ball and a 110 gram large ball. I was 1 gram over.
So it's more than, let's see, 38 is, 40 would be 120. So you're 4 grams over, but whatever, close enough.
It was 37 on the small ball, times 3 was 110. I had 38 grams. Not enough to make a jot of difference.
And that wasn't the point. The point is you didn't have the goddamn fucking weights of the ball, so it's really kind of pointless to do an experiment when you don't know what their actual weights are. Oh, fuck.
Myself and Dispar have proven this.
Okay, so you haven't proven anything. I mean, goddamn. I mean, every one of these videos is a pile of shit. You can't do frame rates on them. And so what's the utility of this horse shit? All right? I mean, your drawings suck. Your backgrounds are garbage. And you're claiming you're proving. No, you're not proving shit yet.
Satisfactorily. You just can't accept being wrong, can you, Gary?
No, what I can't accept is duplicity and hypocrisy, and that's all you people are made out of. So I'm just saying your own physics. I mean, again, do I have to play the Professor Lewin clip? Nature can deal with kinetic energy one way or the other, but nature can't finagle momentum. Well, you're clearly finagling it, aren't you? Doubling the momentum in the experiment. Isn't that a finagle of momentum? And why can't I just double it again, and double it again, and double it again? Free energy.
You remember this test, rolling the ball?
Yeah, so I can't believe he brought this up because it's a decisive piece of evidence against any notion that that this is at all believable. This nonsense of kinetic energy. So. This is a video I'm going to make again and just point out the obvious here that this is a decisive piece of evidence basically demonstrating that you people can't tell the difference between real science and, just because you're too silly and you can't understand basic concepts. So obviously if I give the same balls, okay, so they're having the same mass. And all we're going to do is have one velocity, and the second one's going to have 2 velocity. So that represents dropping 4 times the distance in gravity. Okay. And it rolls 4 times as far. Okay. But as pointed out, okay, which she's not going to respond to, it's going 1/2 its velocity here. Okay. 3/4 of the way down the track. This experiment here, the 1 velocity, this will be going 1 velocity here. Okay, this will be identical to this. And this whole 3 thing here, okay, has to account for the other half of the loss of velocity. this whole distance. So across this whole distance, it only lost 1/2 of its velocity across that whole distance. Just 1/2. And then it lost the second half in this last bit of distance. And the time is the same here too. So the time is, let's say it was 1 second to do this, it would be 1 second to do this, and it would be 1 second to do this. They all have the same unit of time. So it's really just about the fact that their gravity acts on the object, okay, and this is the same amount of time in the gravity. So it's just like saying the same amount of time in a paint sprayer, the same amount of time in the rain. There's a certain number of raindrops this thing will collect because of the time it's in the rain going across this distance. The fact is, this thing will weigh less the faster I move it per foot. Per foot of distance, it will impose less weight on the ground and therefore lose less energy to the ground because it's putting less pressure on the ground. It has literally less contact with the ground because it's being pushed less an amount per foot. So it's an absolute proof experiment. They'll have no explanation for this half the velocity 3/4 of the way down the track. They can't explain that any other way than to concede that, yes, these are 2 units of time. Okay, it rolls 4 times the distance, does it in only half the time. Okay, twice 2 units of time. It only gets 2 units of gravity. Okay, friction. And so, that's what the experiment is demonstrating. And again, you could just argue the thin ice argument. Everybody has experience with thin ice. The faster you go across thin ice, the less likely you are to fall through. It's because gravity hasn't had enough time to give you your full weight. So you're weighing less per foot across the ice. You're putting less pressure on the ice, and that's why you don't break the ice. So I can't even believe he would bring this up. To me, yes, this is decisive. You lose.
This reality, rolling the ball along the ground at 1 velocity gets you 1 distance, and 2 velocities it goes 4 distance. And you say that only does that. It's not showing that it has 4 times the energy.
And it clearly isn't. And again, you still haven't shown that it's 4 times the energy by banging it into something. So again, where's your evidence? In 300 years, where's your piece of evidence demonstrating that twice the velocity is 4 times the energy? The Mythbusters didn't find it. They crashed cars at twice the velocity. They didn't get 4 times the damage. So where's your evidence?
Of course, kinetic energy.
Again, where's your evidence that it takes 16 times the energy to spin a motor 4 times as fast? I suggested when you had a motor hooked up to electricity that you just measure how much electricity it takes to make the motor spin 4 times as fast, and you wouldn't do that experiment.
Hundreds of years old theory.
Right. Religion is thousands of years old, and it's garbage. Right? So garbage is garbage. You have a garbage theory because you don't have any evidence to defend it. Jesus Christ.
It does. Because momentum is not energy.
It says you, okay, and with no real evidence. And certainly kinetic energy doesn't move spaceships. Again, we can ask the question, do you think NASA used 1/2 mv squared to calculate the thrust for the lunar module? What's your opinion? Everything I've heard from NASA and everything I've heard about what they put in their computer has nothing to do with any other calculation than momentum.
You say it's because it loses more to friction, loses less to friction as it goes fast. Loses less to friction on the...
Yes, it loses the same amount when it's going the same velocity. So the little tiny portion, it's the same amount of friction in the little tiny portion, the 1 unit of distance. And the other 3 units of distance, it has to lose the same amount of energy in those 3 units.
Ground. Wouldn't it be lovely if we could do away with that problem of the friction?
The whole point is the friction is the way you're measuring the energy, retard. If you did away with the friction, then it's like doing it in space. And guess what? It'll be twice the distance. It won't be 4 times the distance then. It won't travel 4 times the distance, you dumb fuck, if you get rid of the friction. The friction is you extracting the energy. If you don't extract the energy, then if you're going twice as fast, you go twice as far, you stupid shit. Damn, he's so fucking dumb.
We can.
So he thinks rolling something down a slope is getting rid of friction? So he thinks this is going to happen. This launching thing is going to happen. No, it isn't going to happen. You're not. You can't change these facts, you retard. This is the Brozo stupid experiment. It has to go twice as far, you stupid fuck. It's not going to go 4 times as far. Oh, he's just so goddamn dumb.
Your twice velocity with the same ball as your 1 velocity. Roll them down the ramp and off a ledge into the air. The 1 velocity will fall at 1 distance. And the 2...
So he actually thinks it'll fall 4 times as far. Now I can play every physics professor I think has illustrated this experiment. It's so famous, right? They even have a device for it, where it launches the ball this way and it drops another ball straight down. So as it launches the ball this way, it drops one straight down, and they land at the ground at the same time because there's no friction, you idiot. All right. And the simple truth is that, yes, you can't change the gravitational force. So it has to fall in the same amount of time. And it won't have any time to go 4 times the distance, you lunatic. Oh, God, he's so stupid.
Velocity will go 4 distance.
No, it won't. So that's the same as saying in space it'll go 4 times the distance, right? So the point is gravity's the same. So gravity's going down the same rate. So you can't change what gravity's doing. So just understand it's really just launching 2 things in space. One with 1 velocity and one with 2 velocity. And after 1 second, yeah, the one with 2 velocity will be twice as far. And the one with 1 velocity will be half as far. And after 2 seconds, the same thing will be true. And after 15 seconds, after 15 billion years, the one with 2 velocity is only going to be twice as far. It won't have only gone twice as far. So here you made this video and you just made an idiot out of yourself again. You're saying something completely idiotic. It doesn't go 4 times the distance if there's no friction, you stupid fuck.
No friction now on the ground, is there, Gary?
What an idiot.
And not enough air friction to cause any concerns at all. How then are you going to explain this then?
I don't have to explain it because it doesn't happen, you dumb fuck. It's impossible. There's no experiment demonstrating it, you idiot. Oh, God, you're so stupid.
How are you going to weasel your way out?
Oh, amazing. So, again, do I really have to explain this to anybody? Do any of you idiots really think that if I don't have any friction and I launch something at 1 velocity and I launch something right next to it at 2 velocity, that somehow the thing going twice as fast will somehow go 4 times as far? That somehow it will travel 4 times the distance even though it's going only twice as fast? How can it possibly do that? It's impossible. Race cars can't do that. Nothing can do that. It's idiotic.
Out of that then, what ridiculous excuses can you find, Gary?
I didn't know how priceless this was going to be, right? I mean, he's so stupid, to make this, this is just glaringly dumb. And so to premise the video with all this hyperbole about what he's proven and 300 years of prove, and then he does something this stupid.
And I didn't think you could sink any lower than you have done. accusing disbar.
So here he's got this piece of shit drawing, all this crap. He thought this through, and this is the best he could do. Is just make a ludicrously stupid argument, demonstrating his own mental frailty.
Of cheating his film by expanding his balls in midair.
Well, I didn't say that. What I said is why the fuck was that happening? The ball is 3 times its size. Okay, you're saying that's not unusual and weird. And again, what good would any of the measurements be? You can't figure out that if something's swinging towards the camera and away from the camera, that the lines are going to be different lengths. That it's not going to be the same swing distance if it's going this way or going this way, that the parallax is going to be tripled and quadrupled because the ball's actually moving towards the camera. You can't figure out how that screws any kind of perspective. I mean, amazing. I mean, go play the video. It wasn't until I watched the video that I even realized, and I said, gee, what is that? What the fuck is going on?
Magician, how pitiful you are.
Oh, yeah, right. And I was the one who measured wrong. So he conceded his measurements were wrong, okay? And again, I'll still argue that these arc lines are just bullshit because the center of mass isn't traveling those stupid lines. It goes above the line, it goes below the line. It's all over the goddamn place. You have to measure precisely what the center of mass is doing. You should even put a little dot where the center of mass is on the ball, so then you could just make it that much easier to visually see it. But he's got to fix the pendulum first so it actually swings in a linear straight line. I mean, again, this is, Newton's cradles aren't that complicated, right? It's not a big problem to get it to bounce straight. Straight. Fuck.
And you accuse others of throwing.
So I didn't make any accusations. I said, I don't know, what are you supposed to make out of this? Can somebody explain it? I don't know. What the fuck? I've never seen anything like that. How come the ball is so distorted and none of the drawings are distorted? Why wouldn't the lines be distorted? Right? I mean, I'm just saying, isn't it that a fact? If it's gonna distort the background, how can it distort the foreground without distorting the background? That's a pretty good question, I think. A reasonable question. Oh, you people are just so pathetic.
The insults around what you've said and what you say. Fuck you, you're a despicable human being.
Yeah, well, and look what you just did. You just made a fool out of yourself, you idiot. You just argued something being definitively true that's definitively false. You're absolutely 100% wrong, okay? And you're doing all this pontificating as if you have a right answer somewhere. You couldn't even make your drawing a little bit reasonable where you have this little thing go flat, so at least you're shooting them this way. Oh, you stupid fuck. So he must be thinking that Brozo got the 4 distance or something, when he didn't. Okay, and the whole point of Brozo's experiments was he was basically proving springs don't work very well. That's all Brozo was proving, was that his launching device was a piece of shit. Ugh, God, these people are just so pathetic. Worse is the fact that, oh God, I just hate YouTube. Yeah, I still can't use.
Ball weights.
I can't use YouTube normal because YouTube still isn't allowing me to see videos in anything but a private window. So anyway, enough. Yeah, is there anything else to add? All right, I'm just going through the stuff for disbar. Yeah, so just do the straight lines. Okay, the only lines we need is the center of mass of the balls. Nice straight line, film that. And then do your measurement lines from that nice straight line. All right, but of course it has to be parallel and all that kind of crap. But you'll notice if it's out of parallel because one side will be, one ball will be going higher than the other one. And the point is, the center of mass has to rise above the line. It has to meet the line to be that velocity. All right. Yeah. So that would be that's enough. Okay. So yeah, I think that's it. But, this is just such a junk argument. So instead of just admitting that, wow, the physics should have done all these experiments, we should have all of this chronicled a long time ago. They should have done it with crashing things. They should have done smashing things. They should have done it with pendulums. They should have done it all kinds of ways, and it should be definitively proven. And it's not. And then look at, and then he complains about my ragging on Dispar. So let's go through what Dispar published as a video, the lying piece of scum. He did the hammer thing to prove that, 4 pounds dropped 1 foot is the same energy as 1 pound dropped 4 feet, right? So that was the experiment he was going to duplicate. And so he made a hammer to do it with. So he puts the 1 pound on the hammer in this location, all right, and swings it into a spring, and it's going to watch how much the spring is compressed. And then what does he do? He puts the extra 3 pounds up here, right? So he does the 1 pound from, at this location, this length of pendulum with a center of mass here. And obviously the center of mass for the much heavier weight is going to be way above that. So it didn't really fall nearly the full distance at all. It was ripped off substantially. Now, even when he did the experiment, it didn't, come out his way in the sense that he was short. So the 1 mass didn't equal the 4 mass, even though he cheated the 4 mass incredibly. He still didn't meet he was still below the number he needed. All right, so obviously if he put this 3 mass in the right location, that is, it's falling at the same arc, it would have been a huge difference, gigantic difference. Did he redo the experiment correctly? No. So he did an experiment with a bottle and he knocked it over. Another experiment where he got the arcs wrong. Completely bullshit experiment. Never redid it correctly. Just left the shitty video with the bullshit up. All right. And so you're saying I'm supposed to have some sort of respect for this fucking piece of crap? He leaves garbage videos up just like you have. All right. And he doesn't redo experiments that, he's done wrong. So, fucky Yui. Yeah, so I just can't imagine why he would show that, why he would think that launching thing was a good idea. He hasn't done any launching experiments. Why would he think that's a proven fact? That without friction, without friction, something going twice the fast goes 4 times the distance in the same amount of time. When of course it doesn't. And the time is dependent on the fall of gravity. See, gravity's insisting that it's the same amount of time, right? Because it's the 2 objects are going to fall at the same rate. So how fast they're moving this way won't matter because they're both going to land at the same time. So they're going to be stuck with doing whatever they're going to do in exactly a same amount of time. And so obviously in the same amount of time, going twice as fast, you can only go twice as far. Duh. Whatever. So let's see if he takes that video down. Let's see if he leaves that. I mean, I made a fucktarded video, and I made it private because it was just a stupid fucking idiotic video. So I didn't delete it. I didn't make it private. I just made it unlisted so people can still see it. But I mean, it was really a mistake. And so let's see what he does with this preposterous shit video he just made. Be interesting to see if he leaves that piece of crap up with that piece of crap title and doesn't even acknowledge that what he said in the video was idiotic and nobody should think in space or without friction, something going twice as far goes 4 times as far. Something going twice as fast goes 4 times as far, because it doesn't. It can't. It's impossible.